This is Sanjeev Bade from KJ Somaya Institute of Engineering and Information Technology. Welcome you once again to my channel. In this channel, I am regularly uploading video sessions to explain some physics topics. If you like these videos, please subscribe to the channel so that you will get timely intimation of new videos. This is the third session on laser. In earlier sessions, we have got introduced to the difference between spontaneous emission, stimulated emission, the concepts of population inversion, metastable state, and then we studied some of the laser systems like Nd:Arc laser, helium neon laser, and semiconductor lasers. In this third session, we will be discussing Einstein's relations and applications of the lasers. One of the important applications that we will be concentrating on is holography. This is energy level diagram for helium neon laser. We have already seen in the earlier session. We have seen that the stimulated emission caused by the transition of atom between E6 level and E5 level results in a laser beam of wavelength 33,900 angstroms or 3.39 micrometers. Stimulated emission caused by the transition of atoms between E6 and E3 results in visible range wavelength 6328 angstroms, red in color, and the transition between the E4 and E3 that causes the stimulated emission of radiation results in laser beam of wavelength 11,500 angstroms or 1.15 micrometers. In this energy level diagram, we have seen that this energy level E6 and E4 is a metastable state. These two energy levels are metastable states, and therefore the population inversion can exist between E6, E5, which results in lasing action. Population inversion is there between E6 and E3, which results again in lasing action. Population inversion is there between E4 and E3 also, so again it results in lasing action. Important point to note here is there will be a population inversion between E6 and E2 as well, because E2 is also not a ground state, so it will not be highly populated. So as the number of atoms gather in E6, there will be population inversion between E6 and E2 also. There will be a population inversion between E4 and E2 as well, but lasing action is not occurring. You can note here, lasing action, laser beam will not be obtained due to the transition between E6 and E2 and due to the transition of atoms between E4 and E2. So this question we will try to answer, why there will be no lasing action for these energy levels E6 and E2 or E4 and E2, which lie far apart from each other. So answer to these questions we will get when we discuss the Einstein relation. So let us see how Einstein arrived at the relations which could answer this question. Einstein used this thermal equilibrium condition in order to get his relations. This thermal equilibrium condition says that the mean population N1 and N2 in the lower energy level E1 and higher energy level E2 respectively must remain constant. Means what? If N1 is the population of lower energy level and N2 is the population of higher energy level, then in thermal equilibrium condition this will not change. This will happen only if the number of atoms absorbing photons per unit time per unit volume is equal to number of atoms emitting photons per unit time per unit volume. In short, under thermal equilibrium, the number of atoms going from lower energy level to higher energy level is equal to number of atoms coming down from higher energy level to lower energy level. Now how to calculate the number of atoms going from lower energy level to higher energy level? This number of atoms absorbing photons per unit time per unit volume will be directly proportional to the number of atoms available in the lower energy level. So population of lower energy level N1, and it will also be proportional to the density of photons incident. More photons incident means more number of atoms will absorb the photons and will go to the higher energy level. So number of atoms going from lower energy level to higher energy level is directly proportional to density of incident photons and number of atoms available in the lower energy level. So if you write B12 as the constant of proportionality, which is called as Einstein coefficient of absorption, Einstein coefficient of absorption, then we can write this number of atoms absorbing photons per unit time per unit volume to be equal to B12 rho V N1. Just look at this. This Einstein coefficient will give us the probability of absorption. This 1, 2 indicates the transition is occurring from level 1 to level 2. Now this number, let us try to calculate. Number of atoms emitting photons per unit time per unit volume. Now atoms will emit the photons when the atoms fall down from higher level to lower level. Now there are two reasons for atoms to fall down from higher level to lower level. One reason is spontaneous emission and the other reason is stimulated emission. Spontaneous emission will depend only on the number of atoms in the higher energy level. So the number of atoms falling due to spontaneous emission will be proportional to N2. If you write A21 as the proportionality constant, which we will call as Einstein coefficient of spontaneous emission. See again here 2, 1. So transition is occurring from level 2 to level 1. So this will be the number of atoms that will fall due to spontaneous emission, and the number of atoms falling due to stimulated emission from higher level to lower level is directly proportional to N2, that is the number of atoms in higher energy level, and because stimulated emission also depends on the incident photons, it will also depend on density of incident photons. So if you write B21 as the constant of proportionality here, which is Einstein coefficient of stimulated emission, then the number of atoms falling down due to stimulated emission per unit time per unit volume will be equal to B21 rho V N2. See here 21 means again here also the transition is occurring from energy level 2 to energy level 1. So now we have got the number of atoms going from lower energy level to higher energy level per unit time per unit volume by absorbing the photons, and the number of atoms falling down from higher energy level to lower energy level by releasing the photon. This will happen due to two phenomena. Spontaneous emission will result in this number and the stimulated emission will result in this number. Now at equilibrium, the number of atoms going up must be equal to the number of atoms coming down. So we can write the equilibrium condition as B12 rho V N1, right hand side of equation 1, is equal to A21 N2 plus B21 rho V N2, that is right hand side of equation 2. Just rearrange the terms, get this term containing rho V on left side, and you can write rho V into bracket B12 N1 minus B21 N2 equal to A21 N2, and we can write the density of incident photons to be equal to A21 N2 upon B12 N1 minus B21 N2. Just divide this numerator and denominator of this by B12 N2. So N2 N2 will get cancelled here if you divide by B12 N2. So what will remain is A21 upon B12. So here B12 will get cancelled. What will remain is N1 upon N2. Here N2 N2 will get cancelled and we will get B21 upon B12. So at the end, density of photons is obtained as A21 upon B12 divided by N1 upon N2 minus B21 by B12. So this is what we got on in the last slide. Let us call this as equation number 3. Now using Boltzmann equation, the population of energy level E at temperature T is written as N equal to E raised to minus E by KT. So for this N1, the number of atoms available in energy level E1, so population of energy level E1 can be written as E raised to minus E1 by KT, and the population of energy level E2, N2, can be written as E raised to minus E2 by KT. So let us call these as equation number 4 and equation number 5. We can get the value of this n1 upon n2 here by substituting this 4 and 5. So n1 upon n2 is obtained as e raised to minus e1 minus e2 by kt. That is equal to e raised to e2 minus e1 by kt. e2 minus e1 will be equal to the energy of the emitted photon, that is equal to h nu. Emitted photon or incident photon, both will have the energy h nu. So n1 upon n2 can be written as e raised to h nu by kt. Just put it in equation number 3 here, and we can get density of photons to be equal to 821 upon B12, 821 upon B12 into bracket 1 upon e raised to h nu by kt minus B21 upon B12. Call this as equation number 7. This is equation 7 which we obtained in the last slide. This relation must be identical to the radiation formula given by Planck, which also gives us density of photons as rho v equal to 8 pi h nu cube upon c cube into bracket 1 by e raised to h nu by kt minus 1. Here h is Planck's constant, nu is frequency of radiation, c is velocity of light, k is Boltzmann constant, and T is temperature. So by comparing this equation number 7 and equation number 8, both of them are giving us density of photons. So we can write B21 upon B12 equal to 1. So B21 can be written as B12. So this equation number 9, which says B21 equal to B12, means what? B21 is Einstein coefficient of stimulated emission and B12 is Einstein coefficient of absorption. So this equation says Einstein coefficient of stimulated emission and Einstein coefficient of absorption are same. Then we can equate this 821 upon B12 to this constant 8 pi h nu cube upon c cube. So A21 upon B12 is equal to 8 pi h nu cube upon c cube. So A21 is equal to 8 pi h nu cube upon c cube B12. So this is another Einstein relation. So these two relations we have obtained, which say B21 equal to B12 and A21 equal to 8 pi h nu cube upon c cube B12. This equation number 10 gives the relation between Einstein coefficient of spontaneous emission. A21 is Einstein coefficient of spontaneous emission and Einstein coefficient of absorption B12. But we know B12 is equal to B21, so we can replace B12 by B21 also. So this equation can be the relation between the Einstein coefficient of spontaneous emission and Einstein coefficient of stimulated emission as well. So these are called as Einstein relations. Equation number 9 and equation number 10 are called as Einstein relations. Now let us discuss the significance of these relations in the next slide. So let us understand the physical significance of Einstein relations. The first relation, B21 equal to B12. What it signifies? B21 is Einstein coefficient of stimulated emission and B12 is Einstein coefficient of absorption. So this tells us Einstein coefficient of stimulated emission is equal to Einstein coefficient of absorption. Means what? The probability of the photon, incident photon being used for stimulated emission is same as the probability that the given photon will be used for absorption. So probability of upward transition is equal to the probability of downward transition. So this is the significance of this equation. Now second relation is A21 equal to 8 pi h nu cube upon c cube B12. this B12 is equal to B21. So we can write this as A21 equal to 8 pi h nu cube upon c cube B21. What is A21? It is Einstein coefficient of spontaneous emission. And what is B21? Einstein coefficient of stimulated emission. So this relation gives us the relation between Einstein coefficient of spontaneous emission and Einstein coefficient of stimulated emission. You can see from this relation, Einstein coefficient of spontaneous emission is equal to third power of frequency of radiation multiplied by coefficient of stimulated emission. So clearly spontaneous emission will dominate if the value of nu is large. So spontaneous emission will dominate over the stimulated emission if the value of nu will be large, and nu will be large when the difference between the two energy levels is large. So spontaneous emission dominates over the stimulated emission if energy difference between the two energy levels is high. So stimulated emission will be significant only if the energy difference E2 minus E1 is small, and therefore it is difficult to achieve lasing action in higher frequency range and low wavelength. In the helium neon laser we have seen there is lasing action between E6 and E5, E6 and E3, E4 and E3, but there is no lasing action between E6 and E2. Why? Because the energy difference is very large and spontaneous emission will dominate, and for lasing action we require stimulated emission, which is negligible for large energy difference. So stimulated emission will be considerable only if the energy difference is small. If energy difference is small, then spontaneous emission is also going to occur. It will not go anywhere. It is also there, but then stimulated emission will be considerable and can be utilized for lasing action. So that is the reason why it is not possible to get the laser beam in high frequency range having very low wavelengths. So X-ray lasers is very difficult to achieve because X-rays have very high frequencies and very low wavelengths. So that is the reason behind that why X-ray lasers are not obtained very easily. So this is the significance of Einstein relations. Now let us discuss some of the applications of lasers. One important application is holography. Holo means complete and graphy means recording. So it is complete recording of the image of the object. In normal photography we record only two-dimensional image. Only the intensity of light waves which are reflected from the object is recorded. But in holography we get three-dimensional image. So it is 3D imaging technique. Here we will record intensity and phase of the light waves which are reflected from the object. So intensity and phase both are recorded. So it is complete recording. This technique was found by Dennis Geber and he was awarded a Nobel Prize for this in 1971 for this invention. Now let us see how this complete image is recorded. So for this, a broad laser beam is divided into two parts. One part is called as a reference beam. This reference beam is made incident on the mirror from where it is reflected and collected on the photographic plate. So you can see this reference beam is reaching the photographic plate directly after reflection from the mirror. The other part is called as the object beam. This object beam is allowed to fall on the object whose image is to be recorded. Waves in this object beam are reflected from different parts of this object, and after reflection they are collected at the photographic plate. These waves in object beam and waves in reference beam interfere with each other, and that interference pattern is actually recorded on this photographic plate. So this is how a hologram is formed. A hologram does not contain distinct image of the object. It is only a record of interference pattern formed by the superposition of coherent light beams. one coming from the mirror and the other coming from the object. This interference pattern on the hologram consists of a complex pattern of alternatively placed dark and bright regions, fringes. This hologram is also called as a Geber zone plate in the honor of Dennis Geber, who invented this technique. So this is how hologram is constructed. Now why do we need laser beam? Why it can't be done with the ordinary light? Because we are recording a phase of the light wave, we need the light waves to be in phase, and that will be possible only with laser beam, because in laser beam light waves are coherent. In ordinary light, light waves will not be coherent, will not be in phase, and therefore they cannot be used to record the phase difference. So that is why for holography laser beam is required. Once the hologram is recorded, we want to see the three-dimensional image from it. We have seen that hologram does not contain a distinct image of the object. It is just a interference pattern in the form of dark and bright fringes. This hologram can be used as a diffraction grating in order to view the three-dimensional image. A laser beam, which is identical to the reference beam used at the time of constructing the image, is made incident on this hologram, and a diffraction pattern is obtained. In some direction we will get maximum, as the secondary waves will interfere constructively. In some direction we will get minimum, as the secondary waves from hologram will interfere destructively. In order to see the three-dimensional image, the observer can see in the direction along which the maximum is obtained. By tilting his head slightly, the details of the object can be seen. So this is how a three-dimensional image can be seen by using the hologram as a diffraction grating. So this is how the hologram is a two-stage process. In the first stage, the hologram is recorded in the form of interference pattern, and in the second stage the hologram is used as a diffraction grating and a three-dimensional image of the object can be constructed. There are many other applications of laser. The lasers are widely used in industry and manufacturing. They are used for cutting, they can be used for drilling the holes, they can be used for welding, joining the metals together, they can be used for drilling fine holes. In these applications, high coherence of laser light allows a strong focusing and has a potential for generating intense pulses. Laser processing methods have many advantages as compared to the mechanical approaches. Laser processing allows the fabrication of very fine structures with high quality and avoiding mechanical stress, which is caused by mechanical drills and blades. Laser beam with high beam quality can be used to drill very fine and deep holes. Laser markings on plastics can be done with fairly low power kilowatts, and laser aided manufacturing often allows us to produce essentially same parts with higher quality and lower cost. So these are the applications of lasers in industry and manufacturing. Lasers can be used in different medical applications: eye surgery, in dentistry, in skin treatment, dermatology. Laser beam can be used. Various kind of cosmetic treatments, tattoo removal can also be done with the help of laser beam. Apart from the therapy applications, laser beam can be also used in diagnosis via the methods of ocular imaging, laser microscopy or spectroscopy. Lasers have many applications in metrology as well. They can be used in interferometers, in the devices like speed gun for measuring the speed of the running object, barcode reading. They can be used with fiber optic sensors for measurement of temperature, stress and other quantities. For data storage, large amount of data can be stored on a compact disc, DVDs, Blu-rays, discs with the help of a fine laser beam. For recording and for reading, both the laser beam is required. In communication applications, the laser beam can be transmitted through the optical fiber so that it can reach very long distances. In satellite communication, the directionality property of the laser beam can be utilized. Because of high intensity, laser beam can travel very long distances and therefore can be used in satellite communication. We are almost at the end of the session. At the end, let us solve some numericals. First one, the ground state and excited state of the laser is separated by 1.8 electron volts. Calculate the ratio of number of atoms in the excited state to the ground state and wavelength of radiation emitted at 27 degrees centigrade. So the data given is E2 minus E1 is 1.8 electron volts. We can convert it in joules by multiplying by 1.6 into 10 raised to minus 19. So E2 minus E1 is 2.88 into 10 to the power minus 19 joules. Temperature is given as 27 degrees centigrades, 300 Kelvin. Boltzmann constant we know 1.38 into 10 to the power minus 23 joules per Kelvin. So here, because Boltzmann constant is written in per Kelvin, temperature also we are writing in per Kelvin. Now Boltzmann relation we know, it gives the number of atoms in energy level E at temperature T as e raised to minus E by kT. So we can write N1 to be equal to e raised to minus E1 by kT and N2 that is equal to e raised to minus E2 by kT. Therefore N2 upon N1 can be written as e raised to minus E2 minus E1 by kT, and we can calculate it to be 6.14 into 10 raised to minus 31. So N2 is the number of atoms in excited state, N1 is the number of atoms in ground state, and this ratio of this number of atoms we have calculated as 6.14 into 10 to the power minus 31. Second part of the problem is find the wavelength of radiation emitted. So the wavelength of radiation emitted is given by lambda equal to hc upon E2 minus E1. We know the energy difference E2 minus E1 is equal to h nu, which is hc by lambda. So we can write the relation for lambda, that is equal to hc upon E2 minus E1. By putting the values, h is equal to 6.63 into 10 to the power minus 34, c is equal to 3 into 10 raised to 8, and E2 minus E1 we have calculated here. We can get the value of wavelength as 6900 angstroms. So this is how a simple problem can be solved. This is one more. Find the ratio of population of higher energy state to lower energy state when the optical pumping is used at 27 degrees centigrade and the photons of wavelength 6982 into 10 to the power minus 8 meter are emitted. So here we can calculate the value of E2 minus E1 by using the wavelength of the photon. So E2 minus E1 is equal to h nu, that is can be written as hc by lambda. Wavelength is given, h we know, c we know. We can calculate this E2 minus E1 as 2.848 into 10 to the power minus 21 joules. Temperature is given, K is given, Boltzmann constant we know actually. So temperature again is written in Kelvin because Boltzmann constant is written in per Kelvin. Again Planck's relation gives us the population of energy level E as e raised to minus E by kT. So population of ground state we can write as N1 to be equal to e raised to minus E1 by kT, and population of excited state can be written as N2 to be equal to e raised to minus E2 by kT. N2 upon E1, N2 upon N1 can be written as e raised to minus E2 minus E1 by kT, and by putting the values, all these values we know, we can calculate N2 upon N1 as 0.503 in this case. This is the last one in this session. If wavelength of laser beam is 6550 angstroms, calculate the energy and momentum of the photon. So in this problem, wavelength is given 6550 angstroms, which we can write in meters as 6550 into 10 to the power minus 10 meters. Energy can be calculated by using Planck's relation. E is equal to h nu, and nu can be written as c by lambda. So hc by lambda. H is known, 6.63 into 10 to the power minus 34. C also we know, 3 into 10 raised to 8 meter per second. Lambda is given to us 6550 into 10 to the power minus 10. We can calculate energy of the photon as 3.0366 into 10 to the power minus 19 joules. So first part is over. In second part, we have to calculate momentum of the photon, and for that we will use de Broglie relation. According to de Broglie relation, lambda is equal to h upon p, and therefore we can write it as p equal to h upon lambda. H is given to us, lambda is also given to us, so we can calculate p momentum as 1.012 into 10 to the power minus 27 kg meter per second. So this is the momentum of the given photon. So this is the end of this sessions on lasers. I hope you enjoyed these sessions, and you must have liked it. If you like these sessions, then please subscribe to the channel so that you will get timely intimation of the new videos. If you have any queries, if you have any problems, you can contact me on my WhatsApp number, or you can communicate with me through Google Classroom as well. So thank you once again. Thank you.